Have you ever heard the quote that when you take responsibility for everything, you can change anything in your life? I love that quote, and it took me some time to really kind of embrace that and understand what it fully meant. But look, when we're living our lives, we have to take responsibility for the direction that our lives go, right? There is such a thing as kind of living more passively, where things just sort of happen to us and we just kind of go along for the ride. But if you want to really be successful, if you really want to achieve some of the goals that maybe you have had for years or decades, whatever, you really have to kind of grab the wheel and you have to be more proactive. Right? You have to look out for yourself. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to be more powerful. You have to show up differently than just passively. And I learned this back in the day when I was 29 years old. I was diagnosed with cancer. And my cancer battle actually lasted 3 years. So from 29 all the way to 32, I was in this sort of battle. And in that time frame, I was diagnosed twice. So I had the first bout, and that's where I would say that I really kind of showed up just passively. I showed up, I didn't change anything in my life except for showing up for doctor's appointments and doing exactly what the doctor said, which was basically, hey, so show up for the surgery. We're gonna do surgery. We're gonna try to cut it out, and there's a good chance that that's gonna take care of it. So that's exactly what I did. But I also had a lot of bad habits in my life back then. I was drinking a lot, eating a lot of bad foods. Mentally, I wasn't in a great place. And then throw cancer on top of that, and I'm just like, oh, doctors, please help me. I'll do anything, right? And you just kind of show up and you do the thing. I would consider that to be very passive. I'm putting all of the responsibility on my doctor rather than myself. The only responsibility I gave myself was just to show up for the appointments. It's pretty simple, right? And I think a lot of people kind of fall into this. And you could plug this in, this sort of way of thinking into any sort of dark time or difficult place in your life. And it served me pretty well the first time, believe it or not. I had my surgeries and I got the all clear. So I just went on living my life passively. And then what happened is 9 months later, I got a call from my doctor again, and they're like, hey, it's back, right? And that's when I'm like, okay, I really need to take better care of myself. I need to take more responsibility here. I need to start really kind of stepping up to the plate if I'm going to get myself through this thing. And I sort of see it as it was a sign. It was a signal, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever that is for you, but something was like, hey, you haven't learned your lesson yet. You need to learn it here, right? And that's when I started to really take responsibility for my health and my well-being. And it's not easy to do because when you fully accept the responsibility for the position that you're in, and I'll just give you an example, I was convinced that the reason my cancer came back was because I did not take my health seriously. I went on living a very unhealthy life, and this was the way of the universe letting me know that I was doing something wrong. And I heard the message loud and clear, and that's when I decided to really take the wheel and change things. So the doctors said, hey, here's what we need to do. We need to put you on chemotherapy. And I said, look, doc, I'm not doing chemotherapy because look at me, I'm a mess right now. I'm probably an alcoholic by most of the definitions back in the day. I'm eating a lot of really bad food. Mentally, I'm not in a great place here. I need to fix all this stuff before I go on chemotherapy. Even though chemotherapy probably would have cured me, I don't think it would have helped me for the long game. Right? So that's when I took responsibility. And taking responsibility sometimes means not doing the normal stuff that people might recommend, right? It's doing things that are sometimes outside of the norm, but it's standing up for yourself and your beliefs and doing things that you know or that you feel are going to serve you best, because the only person that has the best interest for you is you. Nobody else cares about you as much as you should care about yourself. At least that's what it should be like, right? I think a lot of people sort of assume that doctors care more about you, but look, at the end of the day, it's on you to care about you. Nobody's going to care about you as much as you. So you have to take the bull by the horns. Now, I'm not saying that this was the right thing to do. I'm not saying it's the right thing for you to do. I'm not saying it's the right thing for someone with cancer should do. I'm just telling you that this is my journey, my personal experience. But I'll tell you what, when I said no to that chemotherapy, when I told the doctors that I'm just going to go try to cure this on my own, it was one of the most empowering things that I've ever had in my entire life. And I'll tell you what, when you make a big, powerful decision like that in a moment of kind of despair in a way, and then to have that kind of powerful feeling paired with that feeling of despair, when your confidence and your power and your ability to take responsibility for yourself becomes so great, that despair sort of disappears. At least that's my experience. But you can only have that if you're willing to do things that other people are not willing to do, if you're willing to take that responsibility upon yourself. The reason I've got cancer again is because of me. I'm the culprit. I am the reason. And if I can really have that kind of mindset, it's going to allow me to overcome that, which is exactly what happened. And you can have that same experience by taking responsibility for something in your life right now. And as you know, I work in a company, I started a company called Athletic After 40, where I help guys over 42 build their health and their fitness and their, to get better nutrition habits, to just to build overall health. There's lots of things that go into that bucket, but it takes a really powerful person to draw a line in the sand and say, look, my life is going to change right here. Now, I'll be the first to admit it's much easier to make that decision when you're in a dark place. It is so much harder to make that decision if you're not in a dark place, right? So if you're someone who's walking around with I've got 20 pounds of extra body fat, my cholesterol's a little bit high, maybe my blood pressure's a little bit high, it's much, much more challenging, I believe, to make that powerful decision, to make that commitment to yourself, to change who you are as a person. But look, I want to give you the power to make that decision now instead of waiting. Don't just take your health and your fitness, and your fitness is a big part of your health. Don't just take these things for granted and kick the can down the road. Even if you're living a fairly healthy life right now, and you know that you can be better and you're seeing a decline, it doesn't need to be that way. And it's going to take a powerful mindset for you to make a big decision, a powerful decision to get some help and to get yourself out of the space, right? Which is exactly what I had to do. But again, I would argue that I had a little bit easier of a time doing it because of the place that I was in. But I also know that you can do this, and it doesn't matter where you are on this journey. You don't have to be in the darkest of place to make a powerful decision, to accept the responsibility. And here's the cool thing: when you accept that responsibility fully, when you fully embrace it, you can change your health. You can and when you improve your health, when you take that responsibility, your light begins to shine so much brighter. And I truly believe, because I've had this experience myself, the more that light can shine, the more you take care of yourself, the more you care about yourself, the better the decisions you make around your health and your well-being, the more your light shines brighter. And what happens to the people that you love? What happens to the community that you're in? What happens to the world when we get a bunch of people out there who are in a great place, they're willing to take responsibility for themselves, and they're building themselves up in the most fundamental way, which is your health? What happens to that light, and how does it affect the world around you? It makes everything better. It is the force multiplier in this world. If you want to be amazing and you want to have a bigger impact and you want to be a better dad and you want to be a better husband, you want to do all of the things that you want to do in this life to make the biggest impact, which is what we're here for, then it's your responsibility to shine that light as bright as you possibly can. And that's what I learned in my cancer. I went from a very, very dim light who was living life very passively into a very proactive person who decided to live very, very differently. And that's the only reason that I'm here with you today, and why I've been able to have a very successful career in the space of helping others to get their light to shine through the very fundamental foundational piece that is called health.